Hello, and welcome to Office Hours with Arrow, a LinkedIn Live event hosted by Arrow leaders who care about what senior living looks like. I'm your host and producer, Rachel Sheehan, and today with me, I am so excited to have Bethany, Stephanie, and Kim. And we are going to be talking about hiring for heart and training for skill. But first, I want each of you to introduce yourself. I know, Stephanie, you've been on LinkedIn Live before, but we have a couple newbies. So I'll start. Stephanie, how about you reintroduce yourself? And I want to know how you got into senior living.
Absolutely. So, hi, everybody. I'm Stephanie Hood, one of the Regional Human Resources Directors with Arrow. I've been with the company approaching 6 years, and it has felt like two. It definitely flourishes when you're connected in the right path. I initially got started in senior living. I'm going to show my age right now, but 20 years ago, I started out as a server actually in senior living. I was in my senior year of high school and I was getting my CNA for the state that I live in. And that is kind of where it took off for my adventure. I did direct care for a long time and wanted to get into the business end of things and started HR.
I love that because that's like my story too. I started as a server, and I always say that should be everyone's first job as a server in senior living. I love it. Kim, do you want to tell us who you are and how you got into senior living?
So I'm Kim Piaggio. I'm a talent acquisition manager, which means a big old fancy word for I find all of the great talent for our communities. I do a lot of hiring for hearts. But I got into the industry because I left a corporate job to take care of a grandmother. And that really opened up my world. And I wanted to do more of it. And I've expanded. And here I am. I'm getting ready to celebrate 5 years with Arrow. And I'm excited. I'm looking forward to 50 more, maybe.
Yeah, I love that. You were definitely hired for heart. I didn't know that. That's awesome. Bethany, you want to tell us about you a little bit and how you got into senior living?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Bethany Sara. I'm the business office director at Piaggio North Royalton in Ohio. I handle all the human resources side of items in our community. I got into senior living because when I was young, my mother was caring for her aging parents. When I was about 13, my grandfather passed from Alzheimer's disease, and my mom had saw what an impact it had on me that she encouraged me to volunteer at a nearby assisted living. I've been basically in the field since I'd say 2011. And I've been with Arrow 3 years this past April.
Wow, amazing story. Wow, very cool. We're so glad to have all three of you. And I'm just glad to talk to you guys about this today. But I want to get into the topic a little bit too. So, like, what I know I just asked you how you got into senior living, and that's part of the hire for heart. But I want to know what hiring for heart means to each of you. So we can start with Stephanie.
Yeah, so when I love this topic, I can talk about this forever. Thank you for giving us 30 minutes. I look at hiring for heart as going beyond the criteria to match someone's intrinsic motivations. We all have them. There's something inside of us. And everyone has a flame and it can be ignited. You just have to have the right match to do it. And that really is how I look at hiring for heart. It's what is the drive behind the reasoning to getting into senior living. I know we're going to dive into that a little bit deeper, but it's really a lot of the drive, the purpose, and the outcomes they're looking for when they are approaching us about an interest into our industry.
Yeah, awesome. Kim, you want to share anything?
For me, I'm looking for the individuals that have the passion. They may not even know what part of senior living they want to be in, but they know they love seniors and they know that this is what they want to be in. They just don't have the skill set and haven't had an opportunity to get the experience. So just the passion.
Yeah, for sure. Bethany?
I typically look for individuals that genuinely care about seniors and making their days better, especially those that are passionate about a certain area and bring that passion to what they do and how they provide for our residents.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so special. Like that, I think all of us have that heart. And so you can be trained. I know we're going to talk a little bit about some of us have gone different departments too. And so, Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. But I do want to ask, like, why does this matter? Why do we put so much focus on hiring for heart? Why is that so critical in senior living, Stephanie?
Yeah, so we are in an industry where we're caring for people. We're caring for humans. And we need people that actively choose to care for those humans. Like that's an active choice that we are looking at, that we want to magnify. These people get up every day and have a desire and dedication. And those are not things that are innate, right? I'm not desired to go and work for NASA. That's just not my human experience, but I absolutely adore the geriatric population. That's the only thing I've really known since I was 17. I have grown as an adult in that same industry. The job, it needs to bring a sense of purpose and it needs to be fulfilling. And if it's hitting those markers, then you completely have the right heart for the industry. We also are working with a demographic where we're in their home at the end of the day. Like we really are working at home. We clock out, they live there. And we need to find those individuals that are bringing a sense of comfort. They're bringing support and they're building a really strong boundary of trust within our community as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, Kim, for you, what do you look for? Like you start at the resume, right? Like that's what you first see. So
Yep.
how do you get to somebody's heart through that?
So there's a lot of different ways. Sometimes if you're looking on the resume and you kind of see that maybe they went to skills trade school or maybe they attempted to go for something different. There's so many different things. Maybe they've worked as a server and you're like, I wonder if we could get them in our culinary department. My favorite though is when I have somebody after they apply, they reach back out to me and they say, hey, I just want to let you know, I don't have any experience on my resume, but this is why I'm interested.
Mhm.
I took care of a grandparent or I was raised by a grandparent and I'm just really close to them. Like that's my absolute favorite because I'm like, hook, line, sinker, we gotcha. Because that's the passion. They just need an opportunity, and Arrow can absolutely be the place to give them the opportunity.
Yeah, and I think that's so different than if you are hiring for skill, because you could look at a resume and just yes or no, but you have to take more time to dig into the why. But in the long run, it saves more time because if you hire somebody for heart, the longevity, So I love that. That's awesome. On Bethany's side, so Bethany, you're in the community every single day. So what real life impact do you see, hiring people for heart? How do you get to be in the interview process with them? So what do you see with why this matters?
I call them sunshine people. And there is a certain appeal to those that walk in and there's that immediate connection and caring and how they interact with the operation coordinator to the residents as they walk by. You leave that interview feeling an energy that you know is going to make an impact throughout the community. And I would say a major giveaway is when they're lighting up as they're responding to questions. Even if it's not necessarily in senior living, there's that fire behind them.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So are there any key interview, and anybody can answer this, but is there any key interview questions or tactics you use, specific things you might ask? I know for me, I'd always ask what I asked you guys at the beginning, like how'd you get into this or why do you want to do this? But anything else further you'd like to share?
I have a few. I love interviewing for starters. So I have a lot that I'll kind of pull out, but some of the key ones when I'm really like trying to identify, is this person choosing us just as the next job for themselves, or are they really wanting to align themselves to something a little bit more long-term and getting more interpersonal to our community? I love to ask about a proud moment in their career. So I leave it very open-ended. And I just want to get an understanding on a proud moment that you have done in your career. And I hear some amazing stories where maybe it was somebody who has had a little bit of exposure with seniors and they dealt with dementia. And they talked about, there was this one resident who needed some serious redirection and everyone was kind of just putting their arms up. They couldn't handle it anymore. And I walked in and I did this, and she responded. And like, I just, like Bethany had said, you see the light bulb. They're like, and it was just, you can see the pride coming back from that one experience. So I love to ask that. I also love to kind of get their sense of what advice they would give someone who wanted to start a career in senior living. Because I then can see from their level, what markers do they identify as important? And are they hitting those soft skills that we refer to? Do they talk about passion? Do they talk about empathy? Or is it just, well, be ready to have your roller skates on? You know, I really want to evaluate what they deem as important for the role. I also like to ask, sometimes it's the simple ones that give a lot. And we love to ask, you know, what about the day? What about your work day? Does it need to have for it to be considered a fun work environment for you? And when they tie that back to connection, I'm looking for a connection-based answer, essentially. So sometimes it's, oh, good teamwork and, you know, good morale, which is wonderful. But when I hear about resident stories, when I hear about, well, I love jumping in on the events that, you know, we've hosted and jumping into these traditions, that's the component I really like to see, because it's about building connections. It's what we do.
Yeah. That's awesome. I wouldn't have thought of that question. So I love that you asked that. Kim or Bethany, do you have anything you would like to ask?
The simplest, just why? And
Mhm.
why are you interested in senior living?
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll kind of get started on that, and I might have to dig in a little bit deeper and go, you know, how did you hear about senior living? Like, what appeals to you about senior living? And then, you know, another one, just I'll ask them, like, what do you know about senior living, and kind of what role do you see yourself in long term? Like, if you could be in any position today in senior living, what would you pick and why?
Yeah.
And that kind of helps me learn a lot about them, because sometimes people think, you know, one position is one thing, but it's really something else. And maybe they really have an underlying skill set for something else that we haven't really thought about. So it gives me an opportunity to kind of talk about all of the positions that we have in senior living, and to listen to them kind of perk up and go, oh, I didn't know that was a thing. Yes,
Mhm.
it's a
Yeah.
thing.
Right. Right. And that's something I actually learned so much in my college years, my gerontology courses. Not everybody chooses to do gerontology, obviously, but it's like there's so many different ways you can go with it. And, you know, and that's exactly it. Like you were just talking about, you know, we can find out a different seat on the bus. I know we talked about that when we were talking about this earlier, but Bethany, I wanted you to share just like your role and how you kind of found we hired you for Heart. Obviously, I say we, not me. You guys did it. But talk about your journey and how you have kind of transitioned in different roles.
Absolutely. I joined the team as a PRN memory care support partner. And a universal support partner. I was working full time in a skilled community in their activities department. After my full time job there, I would typically pick up in our culinary department, sometimes nighttime reception. It's kind of funny because it was the end of the major COVID rush in skilled, and I was actually more energized to come in here and work as a server and receptionist versus feeling so burnt out. It like revitalized me at the end of the day. Joined full time shortly afterwards. I had the opportunity to fill in as interim memory care director. I have a passion of those with dementia and Alzheimer's. And eventually, I wanted to explore a different realm of helping the entirety of employees. And I found my home in human resources.
Yeah. And I love that because you mentioned universal support partner. For anybody listening who doesn't know what that is, during COVID, we had that position that was literally created just because we needed good extra hands. So like people with good hearts who could help in different roles. And so that's why like Bethany, you're the perfect hire for that because now see where you've gone and where you've been. And I just think that's incredible. So thank you for sharing that. I also want to know from Stephanie and Kim, do you have examples of people who have stood out because of hiring for Heart?
I sure do. So I have a story, and she may or may not know this, but she has been one of my joys to speak on, a proud recruitment moment for me. It's actually our resident experience director, Katarina. So when she initially applied to our industry, she had been on the radar previously. She had made an application, and at the time, this was a few years back, a different recruiter had kind of initially marked her out as not having the experience that the role required. So here she comes back on scene, and I'm looking at this resume, and I'm going through it, and I'm seeing how she was prior rated, and I'm feeling a disconnect there. I'm just kind of like, I don't know that I want to nix this one out. And I'm looking through her job history, and she really hadn't had that first opportunity yet to utilize her new skill set, but she was going to school for gerontology. And so that stood out to me. And then I seen some of her volunteer work, and that stood out to me because it was, again, in our population. So I thought it was worth my time to take that risk, to network with her. And if it resulted in something wonderful, and if it didn't, then I had a beautiful exchange with another person. And through the whole conversation, I'm learning about who she is. I'm learning about people in her family and what drew her to a degree in gerontology. And she gets started with us as a resident services director at one of our locations. Then she navigates into being a regional coordinator. She got into the projects at one point, and now she's our resident experience director. And to see her flourish and to see her drive continue to grow at Arrow has been so wonderful for me, because it was a moment where I could have looked at that resume. I could have said, oh yeah, you haven't done the job, and moved on. And I did evaluate her differently. And we have been so blessed because I made a commitment to myself to look for the best fit and not the criteria based selection.
Yeah. And I just have to say, Stephanie, I'm so thankful you did that with Kat, because Kat is my ride or die, I always say at work. So yeah, thank you for hiring her. That's amazing.
Yeah. I'm very grateful that we stayed on her scene, because it was a great interaction. I remember that phone call.
For sure. And I think back to when I was hired. I mean, I was a practicum student, so they saw my work every day. But if that hadn't happened, like, it would have been the same thing. No experience out of college. How would they know? So I think that's amazing. Kim, do you have examples too?
So I kind of get to see, since I work with multiple communities, I get to see like these Hire for Hearts. They're everywhere. They're in all of our communities. The most recent one is the Madison down in South Kansas City, just hired for Heart. They're a memory care support partner person to complete their memory care team. So I'm very excited to see how this person kind of moves along.
Yeah, I love that. I'm excited. Bethany, you have a couple too you were thinking of, I think.
Yeah, I would say the one that stands out to me the most is a cook we had hired PRN about 2 years ago. It was more so she had a love for food and feeding others, and not necessarily the technical culinary skills. She eventually became our now sous chef. Shout out to Miss Val. She brings so much love into everything she makes, as well as different dishes and experiences. And she's so personable, and she comes out, checks on all our residents. She's made a ginormous impact within our community, and she's a presence that you can't miss.
I was going to say, actually, now that you're talking about her, I have seen on social media, I know exactly who you're talking about, and you can see it and feel it through her pictures. I think that's incredible. Very cool. Very cool. So are there any, challenges that come with this approach? I know a lot of people may hire based on the train. They see that resume. This is who we need. Sorry, I said train. I meant skill. Based on a skill, you see that resume. This person checks all the boxes, but we're doing something different. So what challenges might come with our approach?
Did you want to leave, Kim?
So I would say really the only challenge is getting the on-site team to open up and be willing to go beyond the evaluating the skill set, because they haven't been in the industry, so we can't really evaluate the skill set. But seeing the passion and being willing to give them a chance, I would say, is probably the biggest challenge.
I would completely agree. It's really cultivating that mindset, because when you have been in a position where you've been doing interviews and somebody coached you to do interviews and coached you to do selection process, and you're coming to an industry and you're like, why am I seeing people that have no experience before me? I really approach this during our leadership onboard training, and I do verbalize it just that way. You're going to see some really green people come your direction. And I promise it's not an accident when it does. You know, there was something else about that interaction with that candidate that the recruiter wanted to prioritize to get into our building, because there's a thirst there. There's a thirst for opportunity. And when you have somebody that is thirsty, that is a beautiful place to help coach and mold and watch them grow in an industry. And we've all been there, like everyone on this call, anyone out there on watching, anyone on LinkedIn, we have all had a first job. At some point in your entirety, you had a first job and somebody took a risk on you. And that mattered. In that moment, that mattered. You were excited to get that first phone call. You were excited to be given opportunity. And then you're given a first opportunity to be a leader for the first time, to take on more initiatives for the first time without any skill set behind you, except for maybe you have some, you know, a little bit in the background that aligns to it to a certain extent. And that component's very personal. And that's what we're driving with the heart. We want the thirst. We want the thirst for opportunity specifically, because those are the individuals we see better tenure out of. You know, when I go into an industry and I'm like, they took me, I was a housekeeper forever, and here they're saying, we love your heart and we think you're going to take care of our residents. That's going to matter 2, 3, 4 years down the road. Now, I could hire somebody that's got 10 years experience, and of course we do, but it also can lead to burnout a lot faster too. They've been in the industry, they've been through COVID, they've been through adversities. They might be tired of the adversities that come with it and ready to jump ship a little bit faster. You might not have as much tenure with them because they can jump to the next opportunity. And it's the drive factor and that thirst for opportunity that I think I will always vote for the underdog, is what I say. Like, I naturally am going to gravitate that way.
Yeah, for sure. Kim, do you see any challenges with this approach?
I was going to kind of add to what Stephanie said with like the burnout, you know, so not necessarily the challenge with this approach, but sometimes the challenge that can come with the traditional approach is sometimes people come in and they have, you know, they're set in their ways. They have their experience. They are used to different processes. And sometimes those individuals can be resistant to learning a new way of doing things. And Arrow does things very, very differently. So that's really important to us, is having somebody that is coachable on how we do things.
Yeah. Yeah. And Bethany, for you, you see it every day. You know, you hire these people and then you interact, and we may think we're hiring for her. It may not always work out. Are there challenges with that too?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it takes a different kind of person to really engage in how Arrow interacts with our residents as well as our staff members, with that major focus on it not just being a job and going through the motions, but also bringing that enjoyment, bringing in family, engaging job fairs, the brunches, general traditions. You know, not many people are used to that. So it can be a bit of a shocker, especially if they're coming from the hospital or skilled setting. They're like, wow, this place cares about me, or wow, you guys actually have fun and you don't have just, I call it the pity pizza party. You know, there's more to what we offer our staff members.
Yeah. And fun and job fairs is something you mentioned. And I forgot to point out some of our shirts we're wearing today. Bethany, show yours to the screen if you don't mind. But that's one of our fun job fairs, job fair t-shirts. And I know Kim and I are wearing, I don't know if you'll be able to see, but we have some fun pictures on the back of ours. So fun. We have so much fun at Arrow. And so that's, yeah, exactly what you said. We want to show that off. And I love that. I did want to throw up, we did have a question in the chat real quick. And I think this will be a Kim question, maybe Stephanie, all of you could answer this, but how has recruiting changed over the last couple of years?
Well, it's ever evolving. So it's kind of hard just to pinpoint just the past couple of years. So I've been doing recruiting for Arrow now for 4 years. And I will say, since the first, it's just consistently changed. We're always looking for a better way. What what can we automate? What should never be automated? How do we better select? How do we, better screen, better? It's continuously evolving. And I would say we kind of get deeper and deeper into the focusing on the hiring for heart because we see the wins from it. We see those residents, they stay, they promote, they grow with the company. So it kind of makes us go, okay, I want a little bit more of that. So I know me, I'm like, who else can I grab for this hire for heart?
Yes. Yeah. And with our few minutes we have left, I did want to talk a little bit about, what does it look like? How do we support those new hires that didn't have the skills? And how do we train them to have those skills?
I know
It
for
starts
us,
with our, oh, go ahead, Bethany.
oh, thank you. We usually make sure we pair up the candidates with a very strong lead, especially in memory care and assisted living, just to make sure that they feel confident and comfortable in their job duties, as well as having that individual that's been with us and keeping them on the right track and maintaining the standard and not getting their hopes down and their hearts shining through. So
Yeah. And in your own words, I know, sorry, you just took a drink. What can you explain to anybody listening who might not know what a lead is in our company?
Absolutely. It is an individual that has shown themselves to go above and beyond in different departments. You can find them from wellness, memory care, culinary, etc. And they are the point of contact individual that is on the floor with them, and basically the step down from the supervisory role.
Yeah, perfect. Stephanie, I know you had something you wanted to add too.
Yeah, I would say it even starts at our onboarding process. Our orientations are very culture focused. So again, whether they have 10 years experience or they're extremely new into the industry, we treat them the same because to Kim's point, how we do things for Arrow, it can be very different than what they're used to. So I like that everyone's kind of started off with the same baseline. And it's the same understanding of you might have used these terms and these are the terms that we're going to use, for our residents and our community. So just a re-education, re-coaching, and really celebrating the fact that they wanted to come and be committed to us and that we get to help lead them in their career. And then putting them with the right lead, to Bethany's point, and getting good mentorship for them.
I love that. All of that's so good. I know we're running out of time because we could all talk about this forever. So I do want to leave with, if anybody watching this wants to start hiring for heart and training for skill, what piece of advice would you get them to start? I mean, that would be a whole switch with their teams, with everybody. So what piece of advice would you each give to them?
I live by a mantra. Thank you, Arrow. And it really is remember the human behind the employee. And what I mean by that, when you're doing your interviews and you're having these interactions or when you're just networking, don't just evaluate how they as an employee will perform, but how will their human experience leave an impact on senior living? And when that's where you're putting your focus, you're going to win every time.
I would say give people a chance. Passion in this industry is essential, and it doesn't always come with the strongest skill set.
For sure. Bethany?
I would say look for the individual that is looking to make the residents' day better, make the environment better. I agree with both Stephanie and Kim with learning that person because they are not just their jobs. There's so much more to them. And so bringing out that human aspect, you can really see a future for them for any role.
Yeah. And I love that. Like we talked about, we may not find our first role with whatever we're hired for, but if you're hired for heart, we have a place for you. So I think that's awesome. Well, I think we did it. Thank you so much for joining me. Same place, same time next week. So thank you again so much. I hope you all have a great day. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.